When we look back across the Indian Ocean, the history we see is often limited to official colonial archives. Because of these gaps, there's a persistent assumption that pre-colonial Muslim societies in East Africa provided no structural space for female intellectual or spiritual authority. But the city of Barawa produced a specific documented counter-evidence. Mana Siti Habib Jamaluddin, known to her community as Dada Masiti. Her biography and surviving poems provide the material evidence required to rewrite the history of gender and scholarship on the Swahili coast. In the 19th century, her home city of Barawa, seen here in this historical photograph, was a cosmopolitan maritime metropolis on Somalia's southern Benadir coast. The city thrived on a dense network of global trade, linking local merchants to Zanzibar, Yemen, and the broader Indian Ocean economy through the export of ivory, myrrh, and aromatic woods. Dada Masiti was born into the center of this world. Her family belonged to the Ashraf, an aristocratic, scholarly lineage commanding immense social prestige. But as a young woman, she disappeared. For 10 years, she endured a period of displacement and servitude on islands hundreds of miles south. The details of this exile survive in her own words. In her poem, Ya Rabbi Ya Muta'ali, she documented her captivity and her desperate orientation toward a return to faith and community. A decade of displacement left her without physical or social agency, yet she returned to her native city to eventually command its highest intellectual hierarchy. Following her discovery and rescue by a relative, Dada Masiti finally returned to the familiar shores of Barawa. She arrived back in a city with a specific structural advantage: an established, institutionalized tradition of training young women as religious scholars and Quranic teachers. She immediately immersed herself in religious study, resulting in her formal initiation into the Qadiriyya Sufi brotherhood. The Qadiriyya in 19th century Barawa operated as an organized educational institution. Its scholars were dedicated to producing didactic literature to transmit Islamic doctrine to the broader population. She was the most visible product of a specific Bravanese tradition of female education, a system that continued to produce scholars long after her death. Her rise to authority hinged on a radical pedagogical choice. She composed complex poetry in Chimiini, the local Bantu language of Barawa, rather than in Arabic. This diagram illustrates the linguistic barrier of the era. Classical Arabic was the prestige language of the elite, while the massive expanding base represents the general public who spoke Chimiini. By utilizing the vernacular, her poetry operated on two registers. One stream delivered Sharia, reinforcing accessible ethics. The second transmitted Hakika, advanced Sufi metaphysics. The reach of her work was confirmed when Nourain al-Sabir, the city's preeminent chief judge, was nearing death. He approached Dada Masiti directly, requesting she compose a poem to console the community. In a moment of high social gravity, the supreme male legal authority of the metropolis deferred to a female scholar to govern the community's emotional and ritual state. Her mastery of the vernacular language transformed her from a private mystic into a public leader with a specific pedagogical mission. Dada Masiti died in 1919, her final years overlapping with the arrival of an Italian colonial administration that possessed little interest in indigenous intellectual culture. While colonial records are thin and dismissive, the local Swahili scribal culture actively preserved her poems, using an adapted Arabic script to record her Chimiini verses. Her legacy also bypassed the physical archive entirely, surviving through oral memorization by generations of Bravanese women, both in Somalia and in the global diaspora. Her life is not an anomaly. It is the most rigorously documented case of a broader pattern of female religious and creative activity in Bravanese society. Today, as her verses are recited in diaspora communities from Kenya to North America, they provide the foundational precedent for a tradition of female scholarship that remains continuous to this day.